Hello and thanks for joining us on Chicago Tonight. I'm Brandis Friedman. Here's what we're looking at. A new school year kicks off for Chicago public school students. Local groups are hoping to keep them in class for the long haul by reducing chronic absenteeism. Thousands remain without power in Gary, Indiana, nearly 2 weeks after intense storms hit the area. We have the latest on relief efforts.
2026 marks the one and only time all 21 seats will be up for election.
And what to know about November's historic Chicago school board elections. First off tonight, today marks the first day of classes for Chicago public school students.
This is actually one of the most amazing times of the year, and it's because it is the year of new beginnings. This year, CPS is asking all of our families and our students to dream big as we embark on this new journey of a new school year and all that it will bring.
And while hundreds of thousands head back to the classroom, local officials continue to advocate for more state funding to help prevent staffing layoffs. The district is counting on $285 million in TIF funding under its new budget and $150 million in state funding that hasn't been approved yet. If Springfield fails to come through with the additional revenue, CPS says it will likely need to make mid-year cuts and layoffs. Suburban Cook County taxpayers bore the brunt of last year's tax increase, which soared past the rate of inflation. Research from the county treasurer's office shows taxing agencies sent property tax bills totaling nearly $20 billion in 2025. That's 3.9% higher than in 2024. The annual inflation rate in the region was 3.1% in 2025. Maria Pappas's research team says property taxes soared at double the inflation rate between 1995 and 2025. This year's increase in property taxes were concentrated in the north and northwest suburbs, where voters agreed to hike taxes to cover school, park, and library improvements. For more on this year's property tax bills, visit our website. The U.S. Supreme Court is easing President Donald Trump's path to restrict mail-in voting ahead of November's midterm elections. In an unsigned order just today, the court's conservative justices said that Trump could begin carrying out parts of his executive order, despite some aspects still being in legal limbo. Under the administration's proposal, the federal government would compile a list of eligible voters and order the U.S. Postal Service to deliver ballots only to those residents. The executive order continues to create uncertainty about voting rules for the midterm elections that are less than 3 months away. Chicago sports fans will hear a new but familiar voice when getting their morning news. The parent company for 104.3 The Score announces Jarrett Payton will co-host the new morning show Haw and Payton from 5:30 to 10 weekday mornings. The news comes just after the station announced it was parting ways with longtime host Mike Mulligan, who joined us on this program just last week to talk about the Cubs-White Sox Crosstown Classic. Payton is a former NFL running back and was recently the evening sports anchor for WGN-TV. He's, of course, the son of legendary Chicago Bears icon Walter Payton.
I've gotten to know Jared over the years. He's a great person. His energy, his knowledge of not just football. Obviously, he played at the University of Miami. He played in the NFL. But what he knows about baseball and basketball and other sports, I think he'll bring that energy to the airwaves every day.
The new program starts in 1 week on August 31st. Up next, the latest on widespread power outages in northwest Indiana that are still impacting some residents nearly 2 weeks later. That's right after this.
Chicago Tonight is made possible in part by the Alexandra and John Nichols family, the Polk Brothers Foundation, and the support of these donors.
It's been almost 2 weeks since a derecho swept through Illinois and northwest Indiana with high winds damaging homes, uprooting trees, and knocking out power for hundreds of thousands of residents. While ComEd customers in the Chicago area saw their power restored within a matter of a few days, NIPSCO, the electricity utility for northern Indiana, reported that as of 4 p.m. today, over 9,000 customers are still without power. Nearly 7,000 of those are in the city of Gary, with another 800 in Portage. NIPSCO says it expects to have power back on in both of those cities tomorrow night. As the scrutiny builds over the pace of restoring power, community members are stepping up to help residents in need. Joining us are Calvin Davis, government and politics reporter with Capital B Gary, and Joshua Austin, Executive Director at City Life Center, Northwest Indiana. We also reached out to utility company NIPSCO, and we'll share a statement from them shortly. We also reached out to the mayors of Gary and Portage, Indiana, but have not heard back. Josh and Calvin, thanks to you for joining us. Josh, when did you realize that this storm was going to have the impact that it did?
The day it happened, I was here at the building. Ended up being locked out because we have smart locks. And so when the power's out at the building, you're locked out of the building. So I ended up being in my car during the storm. Thank God I was safe, but I saw it as it was happening. I saw trees going down and lightning striking poles and things like that. And then after that, immediately after the storm was over, I drove around the city of Gary and saw the immediate devastation, the flooding, the trees down everywhere, power lines down, whole power, the poles just snapped in half. It was different from any storm that we've had.
All right, and I'm glad that you were safe sitting in the car with that storm happening. Must have been terrifying. Calvin, what have you learned about why the storm caused so much damage?
Yeah, so I spent a lot of time last week talking to some environmental researchers and meteorologists, and I had actually become a little fascinated myself because I too had never seen that type of damage with trees just being uprooted from the ground. What we've been told about that storm, that derecho storm, is that they bring sustained winds and almost hurricane force winds, and some meteorologists even called it a land hurricane. And they coupled that with the fact that we've had some extremely rainy seasons here. And so a combination of that wet soil with those strong winds and the fact that those trees were around so many power lines is what the NIPSCO executive actually told me when I asked her last week what made the recovery process so difficult in Gary. And that's what she spoke to, the amount of tree coverage.
Amount of tree coverage, and it sounds like the ground having been so wet from previous storms made it easy for those trees to fall over. NIPSCO said in a statement to WTTW News just last Friday, quote, NIPSCO employees who live in these communities have been working around the clock since before the first storm touched down. We've mobilized emergency support from across the country to help, and together we will not rest until power is restored to every home and small business in our service territory. Calvin, what have NIPSCO spokespeople said about why Gary and Portage specifically, why it's taking so long for them to get their power back?
Yeah, so the word from them has always been related to the amount of tree coverage. And I was able to speak with an arborist who actually did tree canopy studies last year and found that, Gary's tree canopy is higher than some of the other areas. But in terms of the recovery, that's what we're seeing a lot of elected officials from the governor of the state all the way to the mayor. All eyes are on NIPSCO right now in terms of how they handled the response after the storm, particularly around the amount of linemen that they had.
Yeah, and we know the state of Indiana, the governor there has asked for an investigation into whether or not NIPSCO has done the job of maintaining its infrastructure. Josh, what is this attention on Gary specifically? What has it meant for residents there?
Well, there's some residents who are just glad that hope is coming back. They had lost some hope, with going so many days without. But community has been a big thing here. Everyone coming together, banding together from the churches to the Greeks. I'm a member of Kappa Alpha Psi myself. We've been out barbecuing. People have been doing things at City Life Center. This is one of the hubs where breakfast, lunch, and dinner is served every day. And then there's multiple sites around the city. And so people are feeling that hope and that support and that need. They still are not happy, that they're without power, but people are seeing that the government and that the local officials are working for them.
Gary is a majority black community, of course. Josh, kind of what do you how do you think that's impacted the response, but also just how people, even from outside of the community, how they're viewing what's happening and the slow pace of returning to power?
So I shared this with somebody earlier. That it doesn't help that it's a Black community, because for years, people of color have been marginalized, left behind, the last to get the proper response. And so it does not help at all. I don't think that in particular, the reason why the response was slow is because we were people of color. However, it does not help the matter. There are lots of people of all races and all creeds who have been affected by this storm, all over Northwest Indiana, as well as, that northern part of or that southern part of Chicago area. But it doesn't help in this particular area where majority of people are below the poverty line. Right here around our building, the median income is less than $30,000. So when people are without power or spotty power, or certain areas get power sooner than others, it makes people feel a certain type of way. But I believe that people are working hard all over, because there are areas where wealthy people live that still don't have power even at this time.
Calvin, what impacts have you seen these outages have on residents?
Yeah, I mean, the main one has been, centered around food, but, just as Dr. Austin said, we've seen the community lean on each other. And in speaking with a researcher who studies, the way communities show resiliency, the main ingredient in that is their connectivity. And, I've lived in Gary all my life. The community is very connected here. And, in situations like this, you're able to see neighbors lean on neighbors, organizations being a kind of a stable place for people to go. The library was open. My mom told me that she was able to go there several days. And so the community is leaning on itself. But I think that a crisis like this really does test community, because, you don't have people displaced. You have people isolated. And so in order to reach those people, they need to have strong connections. And that's what we've been seeing.
Josh, just a few seconds left. What does the path to recovery look like once power comes back on?
Once power comes back on, we need mental health services for families. They're going to have PTSD after experiencing this. We need childcare, and I mean free childcare for families, so that they can go work extra hours, so they can go recover, so that the insurance companies and families can assess damage to houses and even apartment complexes. And we need continuous support, even beyond just the power's back on. Okay, go be good. No, we need that continuous support even beyond toiletries, right, all type of help and funding.
Yeah, just because the power's back on doesn't mean all the problems are solved after going more than 2 weeks without power. That's where we'll have to leave it. Best of luck to you both, Calvin Davis and Josh Austin. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Up next, we answer the most pressing questions about how this year's elections for the Chicago Board of Education will work.
Reflecting the people and perspectives that make up our communities, this story is part of Chicago Tonight, Black Voices.
You may have heard there's an election coming up for Chicago school board members. But how does it all work? Never fear. Our WTTW News Explained series has you covered. Here's our Matt Masterson to help sort out all the details for this November election.
For decades, Chicago has been the only city in Illinois with its Board of Education handpicked by its mayor, much to the chagrin of education advocates who have long called for that board to be an elected body. This fall, those advocates finally get their wish. It's off to the races. In the November general election, for the first time ever, all 21 seats on the board will be up for grabs, ending a reign of mayoral control that dates back to 1995 under Richard M. Daley. The board already underwent one radical shift in 2024, tripling in size from 7 members to 21. 10 of those members were elected by city residents, and the other 11, a majority, were still picked by the mayor. The board approves Chicago Public Schools' budget and policies, sets the annual academic calendar, and hires and evaluates the school district's CEO. Now, that power will be fully with the people. So how will the next round of elections play out? Illinois lawmakers divided Chicago into 20 separate voting districts. One representative from each will be elected by voters in that district to serve on the school board. Lucky number 21 is reserved for board president, who will be elected by all Chicago voters and represent the whole city, much like the mayor. 2026 marks the one and only time all 21 seats will be up for election. That's because 10 seats will be 4-year terms, and the other 10 will serve 2-year terms. Those terms will then rotate in future elections, so just half the board will be up for election at once. And where there are elections, especially in Chicago, there's also spending, lots of it. Chalkbeat found that groups spent $13 million on the 2024 elections, and that was with just 10 seats up for grabs. As that number jumps to 21 this year, expect campaign spending to go up, up, up. Let the races begin.
And we'll be hosting a town hall with all 5 of the candidates running for Chicago Board of Education president, and you're invited. It's September 15th at 5:30 p.m. here at our WTTW studios. The event is free, but we need you to RSVP. You can do that at WTTW.com/events. Up next, how local organizations are working to keep students in school.
Education reporting on Chicago Tonight is brought to you in part by Press Forward Chicago.
Thousands of kids flooded the hallways of Chicago public schools this morning for the first day of school. But for many CPS students, they may become chronically absent, meaning they'll miss 10% or more of the academic year. A new initiative is working to combat that. 4 local organizations received grants to help increase attendance by providing mental health services, family support, and more. They're focusing on areas on the south and west sides that experience higher rates of absenteeism. Joining us to talk more about this are Bradley Johnson, CEO of Build Chicago, a nonprofit youth development organization on the city's west side; Vero Ortiz, Senior Director of Community Wellness at Enlace Chicago, a nonprofit organization that works to confront systemic inequities located in Little Village; and Natalie Barrera, a CIO of Better Chicago. It's a venture philanthropy organization that invests in nonprofits helping children in poverty. Thanks to all of you for joining us.
Thank you.
Natalie, let's start with the numbers, right? Nearly half of CPS students were considered chronically absent during the 2024-25 school year. Those rates were particularly high for freshmen at 48.5% and seniors at 72% in high school. What do we know about why students are absent to this extent, this regularly and frequently?
Yeah. Well, there are many reasons why young people are absent. It could be anything from chronic illness to family stability issues, mental health concerns stemming from anxiety and depression. And so part of the work that we do at ABC is to understand all of the different barriers that are getting in the way of youth opportunity. And it was through that deep dive into that data that we discovered just how many young people are missing school. And obviously missing school matters for so many reasons, not only because of academics, right? You're missing critical learning opportunities, but you're also missing access to critical supports and resources like mental health, like food access, or even simply a caring adult who's there to listen to the young person. And so this is really an issue that we wanted to bring attention to.
To that point, why do you think it was important? And then, of course, we're going to talk to the two of you about the work that you're doing in particular, but why do you think it was important to have local organizations intervene on a community level rather than have this be something that CPS or the state does?
Yeah. So part of our research, we discovered that there are many reasons, many drivers of chronic absenteeism, and they really vary by community. And so part of our Everyday Counts initiative is understanding that there are many solutions to this problem, and that community-based organizations are best positioned to deliver programming that is responsive to those community needs. And all of this work is happening alongside schools. And so each of the 4 organizations are having staff within the school building, have really strong school partnerships, and are working alongside staff at those schools. And so they're bringing additional capacity to do the work that a lot of schools simply can't do, whether that's door knocking, sitting with a family to really provide family crisis support, all of those things that, again, our educators don't have the time or capacity to deliver. And of course,
we know over the years we've begun to ask more and more of our schools. Bradley and Vero, CPS data shows that Latinx and Black students experienced disproportionately high rates of chronic absenteeism. Black students, 45%, Latino students, 41%. Bradley, I'm going to start with you first. Why do you think these rates are higher in these communities?
Well, there's several reasons. I think Natalie pointed to the number of them: mental health challenges, economic hardship. Also, in Black and brown communities, the immigrant crisis with ICE has been a big problem. When you have refugee and immigrant families who are being terrorized essentially and scared to come out. We also have been impacted by the pandemic that has yet to really yield a lot of change in young people and students willing to come out. There are other factors in community, from community safety. I mentioned mental health challenges as well. So there's several factors that play a part in it. But the main thing is that absenteeism is a problem, but it's the symptom of a larger problem. And these are some of these root issues.
Vero, same question, but also what are some of the long-term impacts of chronic absences for Black and Latino students?
Yeah, I have to add on to the immigration challenges definitely created a great deal of fear for our communities to engage in larger systems that can be quite intimidating. But I think also long-term is the lack of connectedness to school can lead to disengagement from community wide. And so our community is just not engaging in community events, working in the community, living in the community, honoring and loving the community leads to disengagement, can also lead to disconnectedness, which I think then leads to inner fighting sometimes or competing for resources. You go to school to connect with people. You go to school to learn. And without that, you just feel disengaged and disconnected.
Bradley, Build, you all plan to use the money to provide mentoring, clinical therapy, after-school programming. You're working with Spencer Technology Academy. Tell us a little more about the work you'll be doing.
Well, you know, Spencer Technology Academy had the highest absenteeism rate in the Austin neighborhood. They were hovering around 55% chronic absenteeism. And so we know that those issues lead to other things. That feeds into violence prevention, but also life outcomes. And so with our work, we're thankful to A Better Chicago. What they're allowing us to do is put a full team inside of a school so that we have care coordination, we have therapists inside of the school, we have youth advocates who are working with the kids throughout the day, plus an after-school program as well, and then wraparound supports. We're able to get into the homes and work directly with the parents, as well as providing incentives for our young people to help them want to be at school.
Vero, same question. Enlace is providing mental health services and family support across 7 community schools in Little Village, so a bigger footprint, it sounds like. Tell us why you think this is the best approach for helping students and families.
Well, firstly, we're already embedded in 15 schools in Little Village, and so ABC is giving us an opportunity to activate and elevate already established partnerships and work projects that we're already in. And we believe that by bridging the community into schools, helping reduce the barriers that our families have in just engaging with the school. And that could just be from calling, finding out, to picking up the phone when CPS calls. What we want to do is increase trust for the community with larger school systems and help bridge elementary to high school. You mentioned earlier about that absenteeism starts about freshman year, right? What happens freshman year? They become of age to work. And I'm worried that sometimes some of our young people are going out to work, and that's where the priorities are. And what we're hoping is that by invigorating mental health supports, family support, and activating outside partnerships like Centro Sanar, who give us our elevated mental health for adults, is that our young people will stay in school longer and find more opportunities to find their niche and hopefully not seek outside supports or outside engagement.
And so we know that, your 2 organizations are just a piece of the puzzle that A Better Chicago is putting together, because another one of the grants that you're giving, they're actually employing young people to get paid.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that and why that's important, how that helps counter the absenteeism.
So the Alliance 98 is also a community-based organization in Little Village, and one of the barriers there that folks have mentioned is this immigration enforcement, which has forced young people to go out and raise money for their families when their parents can't go to work. And so that is really driving young people outside of the typical school environment. And so what this organization is doing is pairing some of those job placement opportunities with education. So incentivizing their attendance at school while also giving them a chance to work in their local community where there are a number of businesses so that they can get their foot in the door in terms of entrepreneurship and expose them to different careers. And so it's an opportunity to meet their immediate needs, which is focused on economics, while also emphasizing the importance of staying in school.
The Everyday Counts initiative. It's a $10 million grant to be given to organizations over the next 5 years. What's next?
Right.
Today's literally the first day of school.
Today's day one. So these organizations have been working hard to launch their programming. So over the next couple of years, what we're doing is going to be learning about what's working. We're building this learning cohort that is testing out different solutions. We hope to reach 465 students across 12 schools in 3 communities and hopefully recover 2,600 days of missed school. And so we'll be learning about what's working, what's not working, and ultimately elevating that to the field so that we're able to scale the most promising solutions citywide.
Okay, that's a good place to leave it. Thanks to all of you for joining us. Bradley Johnson, Vero Ortiz, and Natalie Barrera, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that's our show for this Monday night. Join us tomorrow night at 5:30 and 10. The new leader of the Chicago Department of Public Health joins us to share his goals for the health and wellness of Chicagoans. Now, for all of us here at Chicago Tonight, I'm Brandis Friedman. Thank you for watching. Stay healthy and safe, and have a good night.
Closed captioning is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, a Chicago personal injury and wrongful death firm that contributes to public safety policy and guidelines.